Not Quite Right features discussions that are unfiltered and uncensored and may include themes that are inappropriate for younger listeners. Also, I swear a lot.
Something doesn't seem quite right.
Welcome to Not Quite Right. My name's Ed.
And I'm Amanda.
And welcome to the third Daredevil for the October 2025 round of the Not Quite Right prize.
We're still at it. There's still more.
There's still more. Three more, including today. So yeah, Daredevils are the people who've signed up to have their stories ripped apart on air on the podcast.
Was
for
that
the
in the
amusement of all of our listeners.
Was that in the T's and C's?
We must have had some legal disclaimers.
There were some
about,
T's.
Yeah. So we'll read out the story, we'll break it down, we'll share our thoughts, and hopefully we'll all learn something in the process. So as a reminder, the prompts for this round were the word boot, the action prompt of kissing goodbye, and the anti-prompt of break the rule, show, don't tell.
A doozy.
And our victim this episode is Linda Atkins.
Hi, Linda.
So Linda's got quite a history with Not Quite Right, as she's been in the comp since 2024. She's got 3 long lists. She longlisted in July last year with But One Man Loved the Pilgrim's Soul in You. She longlisted again this year in January with Persephone of the Waters, and in July with This Citadel Has Been Burnt to the Ground. She's also got a wild card from April 2024 with her story Pick Me.
That's quite a resume.
That is a huge resume. And we've personally met Linda as well.
Yes, that was so great. I loved that evening.
We went to Brave Words, which is an event on the Central Coast, runs once a month, where people go up on stage and read the stories. Often it's writers, but sometimes it's, celebrities and things like that. They read out their little stories, little anecdotes about their past.
True stories,
True
right?
stories,
Yeah, from their life. But in my experience, always really well written, well read, and entertaining, whether that be because they're funny or because they're deeply moving. And Linda's story was both.
It was.
Yeah, and she's incredibly impressive writer, and it was fun to meet her. And this year she also wrote a play that was performed in Parramatta, I believe, maybe at Riverside Theatre, I think. I'm going off memory here because I didn't get to see that one. But she's really venturing out and sort of exploring all these different avenues for her writing. And I think it's a reflection of her talents as a writer that she can kind of do these diverse things as well. I mean, she's made the huge, huge mistake of going Daredevil on a story that didn't make the long list on this particular occasion. But I think that is just a reflection of the people you're up against, and we've said it before, but I feel like I need to give evidence to everybody that when you don't make the long list, that doesn't mean your story was shit. We're talking everybody in this comp is a great writer. And so it's just becomes about how did I elevate this story for this round? And Linda clearly has a knack for that. But I guess we can explore the ways in which this particular story could have jumped up that extra level.
Absolutely. So let's read Linda's story. And Linda's story for this round is called God Cries Your Name in the Gull's Wild Flight. Peter perches in sunshine, coolly observing Donna through the cafe window. Her hands flicker like bird wings, froth on the beachside waves mirrored in her foam-topped cups. The coffee's scented smoke causes Peter's broken heart to ignite, dark and pained. Her rejection was an axe, but Peter made himself into her phantom limb. He chides internally as he enters. Have faith. Hi, darling, he says. Donna's eyes flicker.
Where's your mum?
She asks, poised on her toes, arms tucked tight, shirt rucked like parchment.
You're meant to be with her.
Asleep. I'm picnicking at the Skillion. Care to join me?
No.
God tells Peter, yes. Beyond the plate glass, The gulls tilt between pines and the ocean beneath. Narrow gold beach like an eyelid. And kids wearing nippers caps tumbling between lifeguards. It's connected. All of it. His heart rises at the sight.
I've taken out an intervention order, so stay away.
Donna says. I have a secret, he whispers, and Donna flinches. But the Holy Spirit is waiting outside. Christ is lying beside his mother and protecting her slumber, her cheek cool beneath Peter's kiss. Farewelling her pains him, but Abraham was tested too. His mother must await her own angel. Later, the path up to the skillion is steep. The picnic basket bangs against Peter's thigh as he sweats and pants. He stops halfway, remembering Donna's pale face, and hesitates. But God in his wisdom knit Donna's sinews purely for Peter's pleasure. Her wide eyes, her skin, the hollows beneath her shoulder blades. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort thee, he thinks, as he finger flicks his hated pills into blue, imagining their unseen tumble. He sets up the cloth. Glasses, just so. Patterned plates on green plaid, awaiting Christ's body and blood. A solitary gull rises over the cliff top to inspect his efforts. White wings cupping the updraft. The police toil uphill in their bulletproofs and heavy black boots. The wind whispers salt. Donna sleeps, and time is short. Now, Jesus orders in the gull's croaking squawk. But Peter's rebellious mind is a leaky cup. Memories dribbling out like spilt coffee. Younger Donna, sobbing over his sterile white bed. His mother this morning in her spattered slumber. I mustn't doubt the shepherd, he tells them. For the light to enter, the vessel needs to be broken. It's time to fly. Christ's curved emissary beckons as the detectives round the second last bend, tasers in sweating fists. Peter stands, brushing a glass from his lap in a silvery explosion of shards. The sky is an aquamarine, and the sea another picnic blanket, woven in 1,000 shades of blue. A shark's gliding shadow passes below as Peter stands with hands upraised, ignoring the shouts from the path. Verily I come, he tells the bird, an orange beak flash in the sky's blue dome. He steps forward and, with joy, with humility, Peter flings himself with open arms into the ocean's wind. God bears him aloft as the gulls cry his name.
Well, thank you, Linda. And in the absence of a voice note, I thought we might read the brief explanation that Linda left with her story. So Linda says, show don't tell. The ultimate teller has to be God, rather than a newsreader as you suggested. In this story, Peter is the only person who shows. The other characters, including God, tell, and I have used that counterpoint as a storytelling device to draw the reader into Peter's madness. I felt that trying to only tell would not make a good story, but at the same time have tried to be faithful to the idea and rise to the challenge of writing something intentional and harder to balance. The quoted verse is Psalm 23, but though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, have fun.
And I do love that take on the anti-prompt actually being very linked to God. God has a history of telling people to do things that are, not quite right, if you will. There's the story of Abraham and he's the same kind of vibe. God telling someone to do things that are not wholly legal.
Not wholly holy.
Not wholly holy, yes. All right, so let's start with the title, as we always do. God Cries Your Name in the Gull's Wild Flight. And a very poetic title, as Linda likes to do. Like all of her titles, which I called out at the start of most of them I'll say at the start of the episode, like But One Man Loved the Pilgrim's Soul in You, like they're very poetic titles. And this one definitely recalls what happens in the story, which is about this flight that takes place at the end of the story. And obviously God featured heavily. Okay, so I will say at the outset, just some things I want to call out as being really great in this story that I loved.
Well, that makes a nice change for a Daredevil episode. Yeah, go on.
And that's the close third here. We really get Peter's view of the world, told in third person, but definitely Peter's perspective that's coming through. And really well done, but I'll say also that led to some clarity issues for me.
Okay.
Because we have a very unreliable narrator here, someone who's is definitely not giving a true and accurate account of events as we would imagine them. So I think I would say, just at the outset, that my biggest call out for this story would be clarity.
Yep.
Like how to make things more clear for the reader to follow along while still maintaining that layer of unreliable narrator. Because I think that's really strong and really compelling.
Yeah,
but
that's
we want to be in on it as well. Like as the reader, you want the reader to be in on that unreliable narrator from the start, I guess, I think, or from very early on in the story. So let's get into the story. So we start off with a very lovely piece of alliteration. Peter perches in sunshine, coolly observing Donna through the cafe window. So I'm gonna speak quite freely here because I know that Linda is a very experienced writer and
Here we go. Go on.
And she can take it, I feel. And I think that she'll understand what I'm saying and accept that it's not a criticism, it's just a critique, basically.
All right, let's get into the distinction between a criticism and a critique. But anyway, no, I get you. Go on.
All right. So back to clarity. And this did take a few reads for me to really kind of absorb what was happening. And I don't really have all my questions answered at this stage. So as we go through, we'll kind of uncover some of those things. But the first thing that wasn't readily apparent at the opening, and it is when you break down the sentences, but maybe not as a reader, is just whose story this is straight off. So it is told from Peter's perspective. It's Peter's close third story. But I felt coming into it, the first sentence, Peter perches in sunshine, coolly observing Donna through the cafe window. So very clearly, Peter is the subject and Donna is the object here. However, we move to things that she's doing, her hands flickering and her holding the coffee, and understanding that this is all through Peter's eyes from his perspective. But for me, reading this, I was taking this to be Donna's story the first time around. So seeing this from Donna's perspective, I wasn't quite getting that idea of the unreliable narrator and the fact that what's being put into this is Peter's perspective. Totally get it now. I'm just talking about first reading. So I think to establish that perspective a lot more firmly, we needed to dwell just a bit longer on Peter somehow, rather than just he's perching and then straight away we're looking at Donna for a paragraph. We might have needed just a little bit more time with him to establish him as the main character.
And I think that's a tricky one. And we're talking fine lines here, right? Like this is not like a glaring omission or anything like that. I think this is an issue I've seen crop up before in a much more overt way where like the focus is on the secondary character often. And in this case, like Linda's done the right thing of bringing Peter first,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is often the issue that I've noticed with other stories where we don't mention the point of view character until later, and by then it's too late. So I think by placing Peter first in the action, that's a good choice. Peter is the one, and then we go from there. But as you say, maybe it would have been appropriate to just linger with him just that moment longer to establish him as the point of view character before we look at his perceptions. Now, it's a very fine line because I think Linda has done it. I'm not sure, like speaking freely, as you say, that wasn't an issue for me. Certainly not one that I noticed. So I'm not sure that it's like a problem, but I appreciate what you're saying. And I think maybe, and like this is just spitballing, and I'm not saying this is an answer by any means, but something to consider if we are going to go such close third with him, whether maybe a first person perspective might have worked here if we are going to be very closely observing Donna and then the things that happen, maybe going first person, getting into his internal thoughts might have sort of addressed that issue for you, that we are already in the mind of the point of view character as the story begins.
And that's what I said, like when you look at this at the sentence structure level, I think she has absolutely done everything right. Given the fact that that close third is so important and understanding that who the perspective character is and the fact that they are unreliable is so central to this story, just a little bit more reinforcing that idea at the opening might have just helped increase clarity.
One thing I want to call out about these opening lines is that Linda's very much leaning on this bird metaphor right from the outset. So Peter is perching and Donna's hands are flickering like bird wings. And I like that. I like that she's like using all of these ideas and tying them all in together. And I think that's really great, but I will challenge like the very first sentence where we say Peter perches in sunshine, coolly observing Donna through the cafe window. Like this idea of him perching in sunshine is perhaps a little bit abstract, and that when you are first orienting the reader in your story world, it might be more appropriate to be a little bit more clear on what that means. And perching is great. Like we've got this bird idea, but also like what does that mean? Like if you imagine yourself, we're in a competition setting, we're reading hundreds of stories, and I'm picking up this story for the first time and I'm reading Peter perches in sunshine. It has a pleasing sound to it. It's got that bird metaphor, like there's positives there, but what am I picturing? And I think in those very first sentences, we have to prioritize the visual.
I totally agree with you, and I have that in my notes too, that it is difficult to picture. And again, this took me a few reads to really orient myself to the scene to understand who was inside the cafe and who was outside the cafe and who was the perspective character and who was being watched. It's all there and it's very condensed. So yeah, I agree that perches coming so early in the piece, I think maybe gives the wrong visual of what's happening in that scene.
Yeah, again, like it's about prioritizing clarity and the visual, like setting the stage before we get into all that other cool stuff that we're going to do.
Yeah, but I do love a lot of the images here in this opening paragraph. We have the froth on the beachside waves mirroring the foam-topped cups. We have the scented smoke. Again, this is the religious idea, the scented smoke, another theme of the story, causing Peter's broken heart to ignite. It's a lot of little hints as well. Peter's broken heart. And we got her rejection was an axe, but Peter made himself into a phantom limb. There's a lot of information in there, little clues. You know, once we've read this a few times, we know that like Donna has broken up with Peter in the past, and that's why his heart is broken. That's why, you know, this phantom limb idea, I think I found that challenging the first time around. I like the idea of becoming a phantom limb, but coming so quickly in this first paragraph, I don't think I could connect with it, understanding what does that mean, phantom limb.
And I think this is something that is a challenge for a lot of stories in this flash fiction competition setting, is giving us a lot of information right up front and the reader not being able to keep up. It's so tough because you do need to give information up front, otherwise we're lost. But it's this balance of like how much and what's too much. And I think there are a lot of ideas being expressed here in this opening paragraph, which is great because it's a rich story. But at the same time, if it's so rich that the reader is like sort of getting left behind, then in a competition setting, that's a problem.
I'll mention one more point of confusion that I had here as well. So just this idea of the phantom limb. So Peter made himself into her phantom limb. And the next line is, he chides internally as he enters, have faith. And now that's him entering the cafe. But I had this idea, and because we have the brief explanation about God and Peter in perching as well, and being called Peter, and I was imagining like St. Peter as well, I had this idea that Peter may have been like St. Peter or a spirit who was entering her like a phantom limb, like when he enters, it's kind of like a spiritual thing.
Yeah, and I think you make a valid point there because, I mean, I have no doubt that Peter was an intentional choice of name there
for sure.
by Linda. Peter being one of Jesus' disciples and famously the guy who guards the pearly gates or whatever of heaven. So, yeah, I have no doubt that that's an intentional use. But also, like, I think it is really important to think about, like, if you're creating this mood and vibe with your story, you're giving us ideas, and this story is very much giving us a lot of ideas to sort of chew on, that you have to be conscious of where you're taking people.
Yeah.
And you can kind of lead them up a path and then kind of leave them hanging.
Yeah.
And as a reading experience, that's not satisfying.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful that, like, how you're structuring your path, that even if we meander away from like a central idea and we get these other ideas, that you're bringing us back and like you're clarifying and giving a cohesive message. Because if you're just leaving the reader to wonder and wander, you know, then they're going to get lost. And I don't know that that makes for a satisfying reading experience. Even if it makes for a satisfying like philosophical experience, it's not from a storytelling perspective going to give us that feeling.
Yeah. Okay, so that's enough said about the first paragraph. I feel like we've really like hammered it.
Yeah, like
all right. So now Peter is in the cafe. Hi, darling, he says. Donna's eyes flicker. And what I love here about these, you know, the scene unfolding is being Peter's close third, and we're getting his perspective, but we're actually seeing Donna's thoughts come through in her actions. So like her eyes flicker, and then her in the next line, she asks, poised on her toes, arms tucked tight, shirt rucked like parchment. You know, so we get this view that she's anxious and she's kind of a bit wary about what's going on. I do love that we are, while you're in this close third, you're still able to give us the other view through the action in the scene. It's really great.
it is. And like, I don't know though, because I would challenge maybe whether
Can you stop disagreeing with me?
Never. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just extending the thought that if it's close third, to what extent is he noticing these things that we might notice if we were there? And it's hard because you've got to give those clues. And I think Linda's done it well.
Yeah.
But I think there is this trade-off between what feels like his clear thoughts and his perceptions versus what will give us the information we need as readers to pick up on her vibe.
Yeah, look, I agree it is subtle, and I think that Linda has chosen fairly neutral descriptions that Peter might not question necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, as readers, that does reduce some of the clarity, and it's not until we kind of go back knowing what's happened and seeing these again that we kind of get these clues. It's very easy to miss on a first reading. So the next line, asleep. I'm picnicking at the Skillion. Care to join me? So this was really exciting. I remember reading this during the comp and Skillion mentioned. So for those who don't know, the Skillion is a local landmark at Terrigal Beach, just up the road from where we are now. So everyone on the Central Coast knows the Skillion. So great to see it mentioned. And also, it was great to read a story where I could picture exactly where it was taking place. Like all of the scenes, I could like visualize exactly where they were happening, including like this cafe.
But like, don't picnic on the Skillion. All your drinks will like tip out.
Yeah,
because we talk about how steep it is, and it is
steep.
indeed. It's pretty steep, and so you probably wouldn't picnic on it, but we're near it, sure.
So she says no to his offer, and God tells Peter yes. Beyond the plate glass, the gulls tilt between pines and the ocean beneath. Narrow gold beach like an eyelid, and kids wearing nippers caps tumbling between lifeguards. It's connected. All of it. His heart rises at the sight. I love the language here and this view over, you know, the Skillion and nippers and all that kind of thing. Look, I don't want to go on about this because I know that for Linda, I believe you're conscious of this, and this is the intention to draw the reader in and do like a slow reveal. I want to, I guess, challenge the idea of this slow reveal, or maybe frame it in a way So the slow reveal that's being done here feels to me like you start with a blurry image and you slowly bring it into focus. And that's one way of doing it. But I would suggest a more effective way of doing that kind of slow reveal would be more like you're building a structure, and you start with a foundation and you lay an idea, and then you lay another idea, and then you lay another idea. But each point along the way should be entirely within focus and understood to that level. Okay. Right? So
I like the way you're expressing this. I've never thought of it this way, but I agree. And I'm not saying it's like the only way or the one way to do it, but I definitely think it's probably more often than not the more effective way to do it.
Yeah, because the reader is with you the whole time, and they don't have to have the whole picture from the opening scene, but they have to have like the little tiny piece of the puzzle that they see, and then you're kind of connecting pieces to that shows them more of the picture, right? But I feel that one of the issues with this story is that it's kind of more of that view of like it's blurry, it's out of focus, and then it starts slowly coming into focus. By doing that, you don't have the reader with you the whole way. They kind of join you towards the end when they can see clearly enough to understand.
And look, that's an effect, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's not an invalid effect. Like, we come at this from a writing competition perspective where we're reading hundreds of stories and you only have so much like investment in each story and understanding of each story when you first read it to get the picture. And I think it's different perhaps in a publication setting where you can get away with these ideas that people linger with a little bit more, and this kind of playing with perspectives and playing with language and using like, because this feeling is very accurately mirroring his state of mind. Yeah. So it fits and it makes sense, but it's just not taking us along in a way that is easy and straightforward. And unfortunately, like you kind of need to do that in a competition where you might not need to do that in a publication because people have that time to linger and read again and sit with things in a way that realistically in a competition setting, as judges, we're not doing. We're going, first impression, was I invested in this? And if I am, I might read it again and I might give it that time. But if not, if you didn't really grab me and didn't take me with you on that first reading, I'm not necessarily going to sit there and linger with it in this kind of relaxed fashion that I might in another setting. So I don't know. I don't think that necessarily fits as a piece of like overarching writing advice in the same way that it fits as a like competition setting writing advice.
I guess I feel like there's a way to do both, and I wouldn't want to discourage this kind of writing because I think this is a really well-constructed piece. I don't think you need to like dumb it down for a competition. I don't think you need to like make it so clear that you're giving away the nuance of the piece, but I think it's just, you know, important to think about at each step along the way, have you given the reader enough to grip onto and just to visualize and to see and to understand that's not the whole picture. Maybe it's just a little tiny view, but that's enough to take them to the next step where you give them a little bit more, and to the next step where you give them a little bit more. I've just said constructing a building. Another way of doing it would be like, rather than the whole picture being blurry and coming into focus, imagine you've got a whole picture, but you can only see a little tiny dot in the middle of it. And then kind of that gets bigger and you see more of the picture. But like you still get what's going on in the picture. It's just that you get more of it and it becomes, you know, more complex as it gets revealed. And I think this story it has all the complexity, it has all of the nuance, it has the great close third, it has this great character. I really love this character. But I think we don't really feel the impact until I've read it once and I've managed to unblur the picture. And then I can go back and go, oh, now that I see the picture, I can go through it again and feel the emotional impact. But I feel like there's a way of getting that emotional impact the first time around.
No, I agree. I really strongly agree. I guess I'm just saying like, for some authors, that's the effect they're going for. Like they want you to read it again. And the thought that you can read a story one way and then read it again and get a whole different experience is actually something people are striving for. Yep. And I think that can be really cool. But I also, at the same time, very much agree with what you're saying. And I would say in flash fiction, and again, particularly in a competition setting, clarity is probably more important than beauty.
Yeah.
And being clear and taking the reader along with you from the very first word so that throughout the story they're getting it is the number one choice
Yeah.
each time. But you still want to use these like poetic phrasing,
Oh, yeah.
like the beautiful language, the ideas, like all of that rich detail is important. And I think is only enhanced when the reader gets it and understands and is like in a place of confidence to kind of understand that.
So I think this next line where Donna says, I've taken out an intervention order, so stay away. And he kind of comes back with, I have a secret. He whispers and Donna flinches. This is the point in the story where I think it becomes much more clear what's happening here.
And you say clear there, and I think we do start to get some clarity around the idea that his mum is dead, and that it's probably because of him. But we don't understand why or what his end is. And then as it relates to Donna specifically, we're not actually clear on what her fate is here. And we get, it's very sinister. We get an impression that he is out to get her and that she's next kind of thing. But it's, in my view, at least I wasn't clear on, did he kill Donna? Did he even kill his mother? Like it's implied but not clear. And because I don't have a motivation for that behavior, I can't piece it together on my own.
Yeah, so there are some clues here. And I'm sure there are clues that I've missed as well in regards to like his motivations. But we hear about his mother being asleep. And the only thing that really gives it away as he's killed her, it's just this one word and it's almost glossed over. His mother this morning in her spattered slumber. And it's just that word spattered that makes you think of blood spattered. And that's the only clue, I think, in the story that gives it away and tells us, I think, that he's murdered his mother. It's not like confirmed, but it's heavily implied. And as for motivation, I guess we have this idea that his mother was in some way like his carer, right? And Donna's first question is, where's your mum? Because you need someone who is like keeping close reins on you. So in terms of motivation, we get this idea that like he's come off his meds and meds are mentioned later on and he's murdered his mother to go back to Donna, who he's really fixated on. There's a few points that are not clear to me. Like we get this backstory of Donna's broken his heart, broken up with him, and I'm not sure what is meant by the line, younger Donna sobbing over his sterile white bed. I'm not sure what's meant there. So that line comes in, now Jesus orders in the gull's croaking squawk, but Peter's rebellious mind is a leaky cup, memories dribbling out like spilt coffee. Younger Donna sobbing over his sterile white bed, his mother this morning in her spattered slumber. I mustn't doubt the shepherd, he tells them. So we get this backstory kind of just tucked away in this thought that he's having as he's...
So it sounds like she was a nurse or something in his kind of, in some sort of facility that he might have been housed in at some point, and that he's fixated on her.
And we have the line before that, Donna sleeps and time is short. And I guess I'm a little bit confused about that as well because, you know, Donna sleeps, we obviously, that wasn't shown, which is the anti-prompt, so it was not shown to us what he did with Donna. Did he kill her? But he also says Donna sleeps and time is short, making me think, well, did he drug her? Like, is that why time is short? Because she's going to wake up? We don't see him carrying her up the skillion. Is that part of what he's doing? Is part of that him carrying her to have the picnic? I think I would have liked to see a little bit more of a hint, even if it's not explicit that he's carrying her. Like there's sweating and stuff like that. But like if you've ever walked up the skillion, you don't need to be carrying anybody to be sweating.
Just yourself, yeah. No, and this is where I say, like, I found what was happening was not clear to me. Like, what happened to Donna? Is she dead? Is she not? Did he kill her? Did he not? Is he carrying her? Is he not? Where is she? And, you know, we start off in this cafe and it's like, well, at what point did he, for example, drug her and what happened next and how did he get out of there? And why are the police on the scene immediately? You know, like who's alerted them? Like what's going on? And I've said this before and I think it bears out in this story, which is it's okay for a reader to be asking questions in your story, but they should never be asking what is happening. And I feel like we were asking like what's happening in this story. What am I meant to picture here? Is Donna there or not?
Yeah.
Is she in pieces? Is she the picnic? Like these are all possibilities, you know? And so I think for us to fully appreciate what's going on, we just need to see like a few more pieces of that puzzle. And I think that's appropriate. Like even though he's in this unhinged state, he should still know where Donna is.
Yeah.
And so that should and can be communicated to us.
Yeah, so there's a few little details there, like the picnic basket banging against his thighs might imply that he's also carrying something else that is like not able to really hold onto the picnic basket. I'm not sure if that's a clue or if that's just
it's not clear. Like
that's
it
not part
could
of it.
be, but we don't have enough information to piece it together.
Donna's pale face is a clue as well, like she's pale because she's dead. But it's also, again, it's a guess at this stage. It could also be pale because she's drugged or
she could be scared.
Yeah. God in his wisdom knit Donna's sinews purely for Peter's pleasure, her wide eyes, her skin, the hollows beneath her shoulder blades. So we get these depictions of her body as well, which is odd and makes you think like, is this because he's getting pleasure from like the murder itself? Is there some unsaid thing happening there in that scene? Like, as you said, like, is he cutting her up? That kind of thing. Because it's the skin and the sinew and all that kind of stuff coming out. So again, another clue. There's also the moment where he finger flicks his hated pills into the blue. So I think that's a critical piece of information, right? And obviously, Linda, you've worked that into the scene. But it's also a little bit much for that sentence in my thought. Like he's walking up this hill, he's quoting the Bible, and he's also finger flicking his pills, his hated pills, into the blue. It's kind of a lot. And why has he chosen this moment to get rid of his pills? He might have done that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's happening this moment because you want to tell us that he's getting rid of the pills. I mean, maybe he's got like a timer watch or something that goes off and reminds him about his pills and he throws them away because he doesn't take them.
A bit more cause and effect.
A little bit more cause and effect.
There's some beautiful lines here, though, like this idea of white wings cupping the updraft and the wind whispers salt.
Yeah.
And they're things that I feel I can clearly picture or sense. And I really love that. Like we're still very much immersed in the action of the scene and what's happening there. Now with the birds and the gulls, and they're evident from the title of the story throughout, and, you know, this bird kind of metaphor that we've played on as well. And even in the final line, God bears him aloft as the gulls cry his name. And I'm not sure, like, apart from being visually an interesting kind of idea, what message we're to take from the seagulls. Like, apart from them being, like, beautiful and kind of being messengers almost, but thematically, I'm not sure I made the link there between his actions and what he's doing and how they link back to these birds.
So how I interpreted that was he's schizophrenic or whatever the condition is, and he's gotten rid of his pills. And so now he's hearing voices, which he interprets to be the voices of God, and he sees them speaking through the birds. So that's what's happening, is like, you know, literally happening here because it's the gulls that are speaking, right? So it's whatever mental illness he has, that's how it's manifesting. So I feel like that made sense to me, but I wasn't sure what his plan was at the end or what they were asking him to do, right? We get this mention of Abraham having been tested, and we get that it's a similar thing. Like, this is not the kill your darlings round, but the Abraham story is the kill your darling story, and here he's trying to do it as well. Like, he's being told potentially to kill Donna. That's how he's been tested. But at the end, he's laying out his picnic basket and he's making everything just so, waiting for the body and blood of Christ. And it seems as though it's waiting for him to do the final thing, which is to leap into the air. So I'm not sure how it all relates back to Donna and back to his mother and what his, like, we're getting his view, but we're not seeing his plan. Like, what's his plan?
Yeah.
How is it all coming together for him? Because it's clearly coming together exactly how he wants it, but I'm not really sure, like, what's your end game?
Yeah. And look, to be fair, someone in his state probably doesn't have a clear end game. Like, they've, you know, mental illness does not necessarily follow a logical path.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to assume that he has some logical end game in place, like we would if it was us. But, you know, it's a different scenario.
Yeah.
But having said that, that makes it difficult then for us to piece it together if, okay, we can't follow it because it's not something we should follow. It's not a clear path. But at the same time, thinking about the impact of that as a reading experience, if we're not clear on why and what it means, then that makes it difficult to connect. And being not clear on why and what it means can be an interesting reading experience as well. But I think if that's going to be the case, you kind of have to make that your theme almost and kind of lean into that in a way that is a little bit more overt rather than letting that just be a byproduct of the almost what you might call incomplete story arc of what this guy is going through purely because of his mental illness. I think for me that was probably the one big challenge of this story was that it just didn't have a logical kind of cause and effect and I didn't have a clear motivation for what was going on here. Like apart from even understanding like the bare facts of is Donna dead, is she there with him or not, why were the police called immediately and these kinds of, plot issues. As a bigger point, what are we to take from this story? Like, what does it mean exactly? And clearly this guy is suffering mental illness and clearly some bad things have happened. But as readers, like, apart from being shocked by that, what does it mean? And I'm not sure that I got that answer. And I feel like for me, that's where the struggle is for this story is to just connect what you as the author, Linda, are thinking and wanting this story to convey into like a package almost. And maybe that's cheap, but like that's my feeling that it didn't feel like something I could sort of take away because I just had too many lingering questions that were quite crucial to this narrative. And I think that can be like the challenge sometimes when you're embarking on this kind of big stuff like religion and men and women and power and mental illness and like all of these big, big things that are coming into this story, that sometimes we can lose the single thread that would make this a cohesive piece for us to chew on kind of thing. I'm mixing my metaphors now. Chewing on a piece of thread, I don't know, you might. Bit of dental floss.
So look, before I guess I summarise, I just want to linger on this last sentence because I do love that. So he jumps off the skillion. God bears him aloft as the gulls cry his name. And I love that because it is the final act of close third, I guess, in the story because in the real world, he's tumbling down to his death. And in his mind, God is bearing him aloft. And the gulls are all with him because he did the thing that
he's off to heaven.
Yeah, he's fulfilled his duty basically to God, and it's a powerful moment, and it's a great piece of writing to convey the fact of what he is feeling in that moment as opposed to what we know is actually happening to him. So, look, I have to say, there's so many elements of this story that I think are great, really well written.
Can I say some lines?
Yeah, sure.
There's just some things that stood out to me. But Peter's rebellious mind is a leaky cup, memories dribbling out like spilt coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm not a coffee drinker, but in every other way, I felt that. My memories dribble out like spilt Coke, I think. But anyway, and just like there's a lot of these lines that are just really evocative, but also clear and really convey an emotional experience. And another one, the sky is an aquamarine and the sea another picnic blanket woven in 1,000 shades of blue. And there's so many moments like that throughout this story, and that's a talent. And to do it so many times, like it's not just one line, there's many lines that are really beautiful in that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to love about this story. I think the language is beautiful, as you say. I think the structure is really great. I think the imagery and the themes are really powerful and they come together. The characters are very strong. Like we obviously get that perspective and that view of the main character here comes through very strongly. I think the main and maybe the only criticism I have of this piece is just the clarity and the fact that I wish I could have followed along and felt that from the first reading, you know, and I felt I wasn't able to connect to it on the first or the second read-throughs. And look, it's okay to have lingering questions and we don't need to necessarily know like how he's killed her or the details of that necessarily.
But we need to be able to picture what's happening in the scene now.
Yeah.
Like if she's with him or not, like that needs to be clear.
Yeah, and clarifying that for the reader and bringing them along on that trip, it would be very powerful because, and I can't say this enough, all the other elements of this story are really, really good.
And if I may share a personal anecdote. When I was in high school, like I was a little writing nerd, as you might imagine. I loved English. It was probably my favourite subject. And here in New South Wales in Australia, you used to be able to do what was called like extension 1 and extension 2. So you could do extension 1 English and extension 2 English. And extension 1 was like just for the nerds, and extension 2 was you had to create a piece of work, almost like a thesis. So like you had to write a novel essentially as your final piece of work for your HSC, which is our final exams in New South Wales. Anyway, the anecdote part is that I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that. And my teacher at the time, I talked to her and we're kind of figuring out, are you going to do this? And I was, I guess, presenting my idea of what I might do as my novel, if that was the case. And this was well before engaging in the subject. This is just like, am I going to proceed with this subject? And I had an idea. And for the record, and I've mentioned it a few times now, I was in Catholic school. I went to Catholic primary school and Catholic high school, and that's the context I was in. I'm not religious myself and never have been really, but I'm fine, happy in my Catholic upbringing as a culture. But yeah, my idea, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was religious, it had religious undertones, perhaps overtones. And the teacher, who I respected a lot, was like, you can't do that. Just don't do that.
And it's a Catholic school.
Not so much because it was a Catholic school. And this was the thing. I was so put off and so heartbroken. I could have heard, oh, no, let's workshop that idea and do something different. But what I was getting was, don't do this subject. Forget it. Like, give up.
Oh.
That was the vibe I was getting. And so I did. I gave up and I didn't do extension 2 English. And in hindsight now, I get what she was saying. And what she was saying is like, that's risky. And not in a Catholic school setting. Like, I wouldn't have got in trouble. Let's put it that way. It's not about that. It wasn't about my school and the image the school was trying to create. This was very much her advice to me, like, you're taking a risk here. You are not going to get a good mark because you're coming up against strong, potentially, views against what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what I took from it. But it could also have been, that's a shit idea.
Yeah.
And it's boring. I don't know. But it was... My perception at the time was very much, this is a problematic idea. It's not going to get you far. This is an exam. Don't go there kind of thing. This isn't your opportunity to express yourself. This is your opportunity to do something that's going to get you a good mark kind of thing. I guess I'm not 100%.
So, Linda, this is your opportunity not to express yourself, but to get a good mark.
Well, this is the thing. And like, I'm not saying don't do that because I think you absolutely should express yourself. And I would say the absolute opposite thing is, I guess, where I'm coming from, that this is not about getting a good mark. I mean, if you want to win a competition, okay, you have to think sometimes about perceptions, but you're entering not quite right prize here. You know that we are not going to be offended by this idea. So it's not really about that, but I guess it is about the complexity of what is being presented. I guess this is what I'm reflecting on here, that it does feel to me in this story like there are some really deep things that are being explored and much bigger things that are being explored about religion and its impact on people and how it influences behavior that maybe like fall outside the scope of a 500-word story. I don't say that to be a smartass. Like, I mean, seriously, like, and it can be more impactful to really narrow your focus a lot more and kind of think about specifically which aspect of that you're challenging. So it's not just this kind of broader religious critique or exploration. It becomes one idea, one aspect of that in this piece of flash fiction that you're going to challenge. And we've got a few different lines from the Bible here. We've got a few different religious ideas that are being expressed. Peter clearly has like this kind of overarching view of God and how that influences his life and being told by God what to do, which perfectly fits the anti-prompt, which again is like quite a lot scope-wise for a short piece. And maybe that is where we start to come into challenges of clarity because we're kind of trying to touch on all of these things and maybe engaging deeply in nothing by sort of touching lightly on everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, in one of our shortlisted stories just around The Way Out, we commented on how it raised a lot of issues in it throughout a whole bunch of themes like suicide and belonging and family, and kind of let the reader draw conclusions, and it didn't deeply explore any of them.
True.
And I think there is power as well in not necessarily connecting the dots for the reader, but just like giving them the dots. Like, here are the dots, and they all kind of fit in this picture, but it's up to you to connect the dots and draw your own picture out of that. So there is power in doing that. And I think this piece does do some of that. Like it does throw out these themes and prompt us to think about them. But there is quite a lot in there as well. Not only in the themes, but also in the action and in the character and all of these little clues. And it's a very complex piece.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, we'll just review the prompts. So the word prompt boot, we have the police boots. They're coming up the hill, and I don't think we really went into that line in the review, but I like how that detail just kind of was slipped in, that Peter saw that happening but wasn't made anxious by it, but just that was something that was happening.
Yeah, it's very much show, don't tell.
Yeah.
In fact, we're just getting their boots and their bulletproofs, and that tells us everything we need to know.
The goodbye kiss is the one that Peter gives to his mother after he presumably kills her. So very morbid, very macabre.
And again, sensory, like it's cold. And it's, again, shown, not told. Like we're not told Peter killed his mum and then he kissed her and said goodbye. We're given the pieces of that and sort of shown enough to understand what's happened.
And so for the anti-prompt, we have Linda's own explanation about the ultimate teller being a god, but in the story, Peter is the only person who shows and the other characters all tell. So that was a device that she used there, but also a lot of things that weren't shown and nor told, I guess. Yeah. But thank you once again, Linda, for sharing your story with us, and we look forward to reading more of your stories, and we look forward to seeing you again maybe at some point in the future.
Or seeing one of your plays maybe. Yeah, that would be really cool. And I feel like we've gone pretty hard on Linda there. I feel like she can take it as well. She's pretty bloody tough.
Yeah.
Like I think she can handle it. I mean, if you can get up in front of a room full of people and tell a deeply personal story about your life, then you can handle this. And Linda's story that we did hear was full on and impressive and wonderful and moving. And I feel like that comes through in all her work. As does this kind of, the religious vibe has come through a few times, challenging religion.
Yeah.
So clearly that's a theme that Linda has enjoyed exploring, and I'm here to read it anytime.
Totally. And we'll be back next week with our 4th Daredevil for the October round. And until then, ride on.
Right on.
We hope you enjoyed this special Daredevil episode of Not Quite Right. If you have thoughts on this story, follow us on social media and join the conversation. And if you'd like to participate in the next round of the competition, head over to our website at notquiteright.com. That's WRITE.
Something doesn't seem quite right.
Where's your mum?
She asks, poised on her toes, arms tucked tight, shirt rucked like parchment.
You're meant to be with her.
Asleep. I'm picnicking. I'm picnicking. Fuck.
Mr.
What?
Dr. Knickerbocker, number 9. That was what was in my head.
I'm picnicking. I'm picnicking. I don't know if I can read this word. Picnicking. I'm picnicking. I am picnicking. Picnicking. Am I saying that word okay? Picnicking. Okay.
I don't know anymore.
Picnicking. All right, I've said it. I'm picnicking at the Skillion. I am picnicking at the Skillion. I cannot fucking say picnicking. I just said it. Picnicking. I can't say I'm picnicking at the Skillion. That's where I struggle.
You just said it.
Okay, picnicking. I'm picnicking. You know what it is? It's a vocalization thing. I need to be more, use my diaphragm on the picnic. I'm picnicking. That's it. I'm going to practice that every day.
Okay, do that. I don't know how much you'll need that in your life, but okay.
I'll need it next time I go picnicking.